Welcome to your deep dive on AI ethics and safety. It's tailored specifically for you.
Oh, cool.
We're diving into a guide from the Alan Turing Institute's Public Policy Program.
Okay.
Think of it as your cheat sheet for navigating the world of AI in the public sector.
It's all about building AI responsibly.
Right.
We'll be breaking down the SUM values,
Okay.
the fast-track principles, and a practical governance framework
Got you.
to help you design and implement AI systems that are ethical, fair, and safe.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Sure.
Why are AI ethics so crucial right now? It feels like everyone's talking about it.
Well, it's not just talk.
Right.
The potential harms from AI are real, and we need to be prepared.
I see.
The guide actually has a table listing potential harms,
Okay.
and some of them are pretty eye-opening.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, think about an AI system
Okay.
being used for loan approvals, but it's denying loans to people based solely on their zip code.
Oh, that'd be disastrous.
Right.
Yeah, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
It seems like a pretty obvious problem, though. Are there more subtle ways AI can go wrong?
Absolutely.
Oh, no.
Imagine an AI being used for parole decisions,
Okay.
but it just gives a no
Oh, wow.
with no explanation.
Oh.
That's a problem for fairness
Yeah.
and trust.
Right?
How can you appeal a decision you don't understand?
Yeah, it's like being judged by a mysterious black box.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that sound scary, what about safety?
Wow.
I keep hearing about self-driving cars having accidents.
Yes.
Is that the kind of thing we're talking about here?
Exactly.
Okay.
If an AI system, like the one in a self-driving car,
Right.
isn't rigorously tested for all conditions,
Yeah.
the outcomes could be devastating.
So how do we avoid these potential pitfalls?
Well,
Does the guide give us any tools to make sure our AI projects are on the right track?
that's where the SEM values,
Okay.
fast-track principles, and the process-based governance framework come in.
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
Uh-huh.
Can we break those down a bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Think of the SUM values respect, connect, care, and protect as your guiding principles
Okay.
throughout the entire AI project. They're not just a checklist you tick off at the beginning and then forget about.
Yeah.
They need to be embedded in every stage of development and implementation.
I like that it's a more holistic approach than just trying to tack on ethics at the end.
Right.
What about the fast track principles? What makes them so fast?
They're designed to help you quickly assess whether your AI project is on solid ethical ground,
I see.
fairness, accountability, sustainability, and transparency.
Okay.
These are the core principles that will ensure your AI is both effective and ethical.
So it's not just about building AI that works.
Yeah.
It's about building AI that works well in the context of society and the real world.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the process-based governance framework, or PBG framework, helps you put those principles into action.
Gotcha.
It's like a living document
Yeah.
that guides your team through ethical considerations at every stage of the project.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah.
It's all about building ethics into the process from the ground up, rather than trying to fix things after the fact.
You got it.
Okay.
And the best part is,
Yeah.
the guide even promises a future workbook
Cool.
with case studies and exercises.
Oh, wow.
So you can really put these principles into practice.
That's great.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about fairness so far. Is that because it's the most important of the fast track principles?
It's definitely a big one,
Okay.
especially since bias can sneak into AI at any stage.
Right.
From the data you use to train it
Yeah.
to the way you design its decision-making process.
Let's dive into that a bit.
Sure.
What are some of the ways bias can creep into the data itself?
Well, one major issue is representativeness.
Oh.
Let's say you're training an AI on a data set of mostly male faces
Okay.
to identify successful job candidates.
Right.
The problem is,
Yeah.
it might end up unfairly favoring men in hiring
I see.
because that's what it's learned to associate with success.
So it's like baking a cake with only one ingredient. You're
Yeah.
not going to get a very balanced result.
Exactly.
Right.
And then there's source integrity,
Okay.
where your data comes from.
Right.
And whether it's actually a reliable reflection of the real world. For example,
Yeah.
if you're training an AI to learn about crime
Right.
using data from biased police reports, it's just going to amplify those biases.
Garbage in, garbage out. Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
You need to make sure your data is a true reflection of the world
Yeah.
you want your AI to operate in
Right.
without any skewed perspectives.
So data fairness is all about making sure the ingredients are good
Yeah.
before you even start baking.
Uh-huh.
But even with good data, You can still mess up the recipe if you're not careful, right?
Yeah.
Is that where design fairness comes in?
You got it.
Okay.
Even if your data is perfectly balanced,
Right.
the way you design your AI system can introduce bias.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Uh-huh.
How can the design itself lead to unfair outcomes?
Well, for example, imagine an AI system is judging loan applications based solely on zip code instead of factors like credit history.
Wow.
That's inherently unfair.
Yeah.
Because it's using location as a proxy for something else entirely.
Right.
Potentially leading to discrimination against certain groups.
I see your point. It's like assuming someone is guilty just because of where they live.
And sometimes these proxies can be even more subtle.
Okay.
What we call lurking proxies.
Oh, interesting.
Imagine an AI using high school dropout rate as a stand-in for race.
Oh, wow.
It might seem like an objective factor.
Yeah.
But it's actually an indirect way to discriminate.
That's disturbing. It shows how insidious bias can be, even when we're trying to be objective.
And that's why design fairness is so crucial.
Right.
You need to think carefully about the features your AI is using and how they might be perpetuating existing inequalities.
Right.
Even unintentionally.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really highlights how we need to be vigilant at every step, not just assume the AI will figure things out fairly.
Right. So we've covered data and design fairness. Are there other kinds of fairness we need to be thinking about?
Definitely. The guide also talks about outcome fairness.
Okay.
And implementation fairness.
Okay, let's start with outcome fairness. What makes a fair outcome and how do we ensure it?
There are a couple of approaches here. One is called group fairness, where you aim for similar outcomes across different groups.
So if your AI is helping with college admissions and it accepts 50% of male applicants, it should be accepting roughly 50% of female applicants as well.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone has a fair shot, regardless of their background.
But sometimes treating everyone the same isn't actually fair, right? Is that where individual fairness comes in?
That's a really insightful point. Individual fairness recognizes that in certain situations, we need to consider individual circumstances to make a truly fair decision. Think about an AI for medical diagnoses. You wouldn't treat someone with a broken leg the same way you'd treat someone with a heart condition, even if they have the same overall risk score.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like recognizing that everyone has their own unique story and needs.
Precisely. And finally, we have implementation fairness. This is all about how the AI is actually used in the real world and whether that use is fair and equitable.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right? We can have the most perfectly designed AI, but if it's implemented poorly, it can still cause harm.
Exactly. One issue here is what's called automation bias, where people blindly trust the AI's output without applying their own judgment. Imagine a doctor ignoring their own expertise because they're overly reliant on an AI diagnosis that could have serious consequences.
It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking AI is always right, but it's just a tool, and it's only as good as the humans using it.
On the flip side, you can also have automation distrust, where people reject AI outright because they're prejudiced against technology or afraid of it taking over their jobs. This can be just as harmful because it prevents people from benefiting from the potential advantages AI can offer.
So it's about finding the right balance between blindly trusting AI and completely dismissing it.
Exactly. Responsible implementation is key to making sure AI is used in a way that's fair and beneficial to everyone involved.
Okay, this deep dive into fairness has been incredibly helpful, but we can't forget about transparency, another cornerstone of responsible AI. I think a lot of people feel uneasy about AI because it can feel like a mysterious black box. They don't understand how it works or how decisions are being made.
That's a very valid concern, and the guide breaks down transparency into two key aspects: interpretability and justifiability.
So it's not just about knowing what the AI decided, but also why it decided that way.
Exactly. Interpretability means being able to understand the AI's reasoning, how it got from the input to the output. The challenge is that as AI gets more complex and powerful, it can become harder to understand, even for experts.
That black box problem is a big one. How do we ensure transparency when the AI is so complex we barely understand it ourselves?
The guide offers some great recommendations. Firstly, it emphasizes that context is king. The level of transparency you need depends on what the AI is being used for. High-stakes decisions like healthcare or law enforcement require a higher level of transparency than, say, an AI that recommends movies.
So it's about tailoring the level of transparency to the specific situation that makes sense. You wouldn't need to know every detail of how a movie recommendation AI works, but you definitely want to understand why a medical AI is suggesting a certain treatment.
Exactly. Secondly, the guide recommends starting with a simpler AI if possible. Don't jump to the most complex solution unless it's absolutely necessary, because simpler systems are often easier to understand and explain.
That's a good reminder. Sometimes the simplest solution is the best.
And finally, if you must use a complex black box AI, the guide suggests carefully weighing the risks and impacts and considering supplemental interpretability tools. These tools can help explain the AI's decisions even if you can't fully open the black box and understand its inner workings.
Those are really practical tips. So transparency is all about making sure the AI isn't operating in the shadows we need to be able to understand its reasoning and hold it accountable.
Precisely. And justifiability goes hand in hand with interpretability. It's about being able to defend the AI's decisions ethically to show that they're fair, unbiased, and based on solid reasoning.
So it's not enough for the AI to just spit out an answer. It needs to be able to explain itself in a way that we can understand and agree with.
Right. Transparency is crucial for building trust in AI and ensuring that it's used responsibly.
Okay, this conversation has been really insightful. It's clear that ethical considerations need to be baked into every stage of the AI lifecycle, from the data we use to train it to the way we implement it in the real world.
Couldn't agree more. We can't just focus on building AI that's intelligent. It needs to be ethical as well.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the human side of AI implementation. After all, even the most sophisticated AI is useless if people don't understand or trust it.
You're absolutely right. Responsible implementation is all about bridging the gap between AI and the real world, making sure that these powerful tools are used in a way that benefits everyone.
So how do we make sure AI is implemented in a way that's human-centered and understandable?
The guide highlights two key components of responsible implementation: the technical and the social.
Okay, let's break those down. What does the technical component involve?
It's all about translating complex AI outputs into language that non-technical users can grasp. Think user-friendly dashboards, clear visualizations, plain language explanations, anything that helps people understand what the AI is doing and why.
So it's about making the AI's insights accessible and digestible, not just presenting people with a bunch of numbers and jargon they don't understand.
Exactly. And the social component is about connecting those insights back to the human context they're being applied to. Implementers need training to understand not just what the AI is saying, but what it means for the people it's impacting.
That human element is so important. It's about remembering that AI is a tool to serve humanity, not the other way around.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the guide introduces this fascinating concept of the content life cycle to illustrate this point.
Oh, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this content life cycle.
It starts with translation, and this is where our values and goals are embedded into the AI during the design phase. Then there's digital processing. This is where the AI crunches the data and generates its output. And finally, we have translation out. This is where we translate the AI's output back into human terms during implementation, making sure we understand its implications for real people's lives.
So it's like a continuous loop with human values and considerations present at every stage.
Exactly. It's a powerful way to visualize the interplay between AI and human values, ensuring that the technology is always grounded in a human-centric approach.
This concept of the content lifecycle is really resonating with me. It highlights the importance of clear communication and understanding throughout the entire process.
Absolutely. And to support that communication, the guide recommends creating what it calls an implementation platform.
So it's not just about launching the AI and then forgetting about it. There needs to be ongoing support, monitoring, and adaptation to ensure it's being used ethically and effectively.
Right. The implementation platform should facilitate ongoing monitoring, feedback, and adaptation to ensure the AI is used ethically and effectively over time.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about creating a system that can evolve and improve as we learn more, rather than just setting it and forgetting it.
Precisely. And it's about ensuring that human oversight and intervention are always possible so we can course correct if the AI starts to veer off track.
Okay, this whole conversation about implementation has really driven home the point that AI is a human endeavor. We're responsible for the AI we create and its impact on the world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Building ethical AI is a shared responsibility.
Now, to make this a bit more concrete, let's look at a specific example. The guide uses a case study about child protection services, where an AI system is designed to predict the risk of child abuse or neglect.
This is a high-stakes application where fairness, transparency, and safety are absolutely paramount.
Yeah, it also seems like an area where it would be incredibly easy for bias to creep in What kind of data would such a system use, and how could that data itself be biased?
Well, it could draw on a variety of sources, such as school attendance records, reports of domestic violence, and even social media activity.
That's a lot of data, and it immediately raises concerns about privacy and potential for bias.
Exactly. We need to be extremely careful about what data we collect and how we use it, remembering those principles of data fairness we discussed earlier. Representativeness, source integrity, relevance, they all come into play here.
So it's not just about having a lot of data, it's about having the right data and ensuring it's used responsibly, even with the best data, though there's still the potential for bias in the design of the AI itself, right?
Absolutely. Imagine if the AI was trained primarily on data from low-income families. It might unfairly flag those families as high risk simply because of their socioeconomic status, rather than any actual evidence of abuse or neglect.
That would be a grave injustice. It's like assuming someone is guilty just because of their zip code.
And that's why careful feature selection and model training are so important. We need to make sure the AI is learning from the data in a fair and unbiased way, and that it's not perpetuating existing inequalities.
It's a delicate balancing act. We want the AI to be effective at identifying genuine risks, but we also need to safeguard against discrimination.
And that's where transparency comes in a system as sensitive as this. It's crucial that we can understand how the AI is making its decisions.
So it's not just about providing a risk score, it's about explaining the reasoning behind that score in a way that's clear and understandable to the humans using the system.
Exactly, and that explanation should be grounded in the data and the AI's internal logic so we can
Oh.
see what factors contributed to the decision and whether those factors are relevant and justifiable.
So if the AI flags a family as high risk, we need to be able to see what evidence it's basing that decision on and make sure it's not relying on discriminatory proxies like socioeconomic status.
Right, and transparency is also about accountability. We need systems in place to track the AI's decisions and monitor its impact in the real world.
So we can see how the AI is being used and whether it's having the intended positive effects or if there are any unintended negative consequences that need to be addressed.
Exactly. Accountability is about ensuring that the AI is used responsibly and that there are consequences for misuse.
Okay, this case study really highlights the complexities of implementing AI in a sensitive domain like child protection. It's a reminder that ethical considerations need to be front and center throughout the entire process.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that AI is a powerful tool that can be used for good or for bad.
It's up to us to ensure that it's used to create a better future for all.
Couldn't agree more. Well, think of it like this.
Great.
Someone's deliberately trying to trick the AI into making a mistake.
So they're like hackers, but instead of targeting computers, they're targeting the AI itself.
Exactly. And these attacks can be really subtle. For example, researchers have shown that you can slightly alter the pixels in an image to make an AI misclassify it,
Oh, wow.
even though the change is imperceptible to the human eye.
That's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
It's like the AI is seeing things that aren't really there.
And the scary part is these adversarial attacks aren't just theoretical.
Right.
They've already been used in real-world situations.
Really? Like what?
Well, there have been cases where researchers have tricked self-driving cars into misinterpreting road signs,
Oh, God.
which could obviously have disastrous consequences.
That's terrifying. It really highlights the importance of AI safety research.
Absolutely. We need to develop AI systems that are robust enough to withstand these kinds of attacks.
So adversarial attacks are one challenge to AI safety. What are some others?
Another big one is data poisoning.
What's that? Is it like giving the AI bad data to make it sick?
That's a pretty good analogy. Data poisoning is when an attacker intentionally manipulates the data
Right.
used to train an AI system
Okay.
with the goal of making it learn the wrong thing.
So if you train an AI on poisoned data, it's going to make bad decisions.
Exactly. It's like teaching a child to read using a book full of misspelled words.
Oh.
They're going to learn the wrong spellings.
And I imagine it's pretty hard to detect data poisoning, especially if the attacker is subtle about it.
It can be very tricky. Even a small amount of poison data can have a significant impact on the AI's performance.
So we need to be really careful about where we get our data from and how we ensure its integrity.
Absolutely. Data quality is crucial for AI safety.
Okay, we've talked about adversarial attacks and data poisoning. Are there any other challenges to AI safety that we should be aware of?
One more that's really important is the issue of unintended consequences.
What do you mean by that?
Even with the best intentions, AI systems can sometimes have unforeseen negative impacts.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, imagine an AI system designed to optimize traffic flow in a city.
Okay.
It might succeed in reducing overall congestion,
Right.
But it could also inadvertently create new bottlenecks in certain areas, making things worse for some people.
That's a great example. It shows how complex these systems are and how difficult it can be to predict all the possible outcomes.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of thinking holistically about AI safety and considering all the potential impacts, both intended and unintended.
So AI safety isn't just about preventing malicious attacks or bad data. It's also about anticipating and mitigating these unintended consequences.
Precisely. It requires a broad perspective and a willingness to think outside the box.
This conversation has been pretty sobering, but also really important. It's clear that AI safety is a critical issue that deserves our full attention.
It is, and it's an issue that we need to address collectively. We need researchers, policymakers, industry leaders, and the public all working together.
So AI safety is a shared responsibility.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in ensuring that AI is used safely and ethically.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about some potential solutions to these challenges. What are some things we can do to make AI systems safer?
Well, there's a lot of exciting work being done in the field of AI safety research, and new techniques are being developed all the time.
Let's start with adversarial attacks. How can we make AI systems more resistant to those kinds of attacks?
One promising approach is called adversarial training.
What's that? Is it like giving the AI a martial arts class so it can defend itself?
Uh-huh. That's a funny way to put it. But it's not too far off in adversarial training. You expose the AI system to examples of adversarial attacks
Right.
during the training process.
So it's like giving the AI a vaccine to help it develop immunity to those attacks?
Exactly. By seeing these attacks, the AI learns to recognize and defend against them.
That makes sense. But what about attacks it hasn't seen before? Can it defend against those too?
That's a tougher challenge, but researchers are exploring techniques from the field of formal verification to try to address that.
Formal verification, that sounds intense. What is it?
Yeah. It's a way to mathematically prove that a system meets certain safety specifications.
So it's like a mathematical guarantee that the AI system won't behave in an unsafe way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's already used to ensure the safety of critical systems like airplanes and nuclear power plants.
So it's a proven technology, but applying it to AI is still a work in progress.
Right. AI systems are often very complex, so it can be difficult to model them mathematically and verify their safety in a comprehensive way.
But it sounds like a promising area of research.
It definitely is.
Now let's talk about data poisoning. What are some ways to protect AI systems from that threat?
One approach is to use data sanitization techniques.
Data sanitization, what does that involve?
It's about cleaning and filtering the data to remove potential poisons before it's used to train the AI.
So it's like washing your hands before you eat to prevent germs from getting into your body?
Exactly, and there are various techniques for doing this.
Can you give me an example?
One common technique is to remove outliers from the data.
Outliers, what are those?
Outliers are data points that are significantly different from the rest of the data.
Okay.
They're like the oddballs in a group.
And why are they a problem?
They can be introduced into the data either accidentally or intentionally. An attacker might insert outliers into the data to poison it.
So removing outliers can help to make the data cleaner and more reliable.
Exactly.
Are there any other data sanitization techniques that are commonly used?
Another one is to use anomaly detection algorithms.
Anomaly detection, those sound like something out of a sci-fi movie. What do?
They're used to identify data points that are unusual or unexpected. They're like security guards looking for suspicious activity.
So they can help to spot potential data poisons that might have slipped through other filters.
Right.
These data sanitization techniques sound really useful, but I'm guessing no system is perfect.
You're right. No data sanitization technique is foolproof, so it's important to have multiple layers of defense.
So we can't just rely on cleaning the data. We also need to be careful about where we get it from in the first place.
Yes, exactly. Data provenance and integrity are crucial for AI safety.
Okay, now let's move on to the challenge of unintended consequences. How can we anticipate and mitigate those?
One helpful approach is to use scenario planning techniques.
Scenario planning. That sounds like something businesses do to prepare for different market conditions.
It's actually a broader concept than that. It's about imagining different possible futures and developing plans to deal with them, regardless of the specific context.
So it's like a thought experiment to explore what could go wrong and how we might respond.
Exactly. And it can be a really valuable tool for identifying potential unintended consequences of AI systems.
How does it work in practice?
Well, you get a group of people together
Okay.
and have them brainstorm different possible scenarios that could occur in the future.
So they might imagine what would happen if the AI system malfunctions or if it's used in a way that wasn't intended.
Right. And once they've identified a range of possible scenarios, they can start developing plans to deal with them.
So it's about being prepared for the unexpected and having a plan B or even a plan C.
Exactly. And scenario planning can also be used to identify potential ethical concerns that might not be obvious at first glance.
So it's a versatile tool that can help with both safety and ethics.
It is.
We've been talking a lot about technical solutions to AI safety challenges, but what about the human element? What role do humans play in all of this?
The human element is absolutely crucial. We need to design AI systems that are aligned with human values, and we need to ensure that humans have appropriate oversight over AI systems.
So it's not just about building safe AI, it's also about using it safely.
Exactly. And that requires a combination of technical expertise and ethical judgment.
It's a team effort.
It is.
Well, this deep dive into AI safety has been both informative and inspiring. It's clear that AI safety is a complex challenge, but it's also one that we can overcome if we work together.
I agree. AI safety is a shared responsibility, and we all have a role to play in ensuring that AI is used safely and ethically.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to revisit the Alan Turing Institute's guide and highlight some of its key takeaways. What are some of the most important things we should remember from this conversation?
Well, one key takeaway is that ethical considerations need to be embedded into every stage of the AI lifecycle, from design to development to deployment.
We can't just tack ethics on at the end as an afterthought.
Exactly. It needs to be part of the process from the very beginning.
And the guide provides a practical framework for doing that, with the civic values, the fast-track principles, and the process-based governance framework.
Those tools can be really helpful for guiding ethical decision-making throughout the AI development process.
And the guide emphasizes that ethical AI isn't just about following rules.
It's about making judgments and decisions that are aligned with their values.
Exactly. And that requires human oversight and intervention.
Absolutely.
Another key takeaway from the guide is that AI safety is paramount.
Yes, we need to ensure that AI systems are reliable, robust, and secure. And we need to prevent them from causing harm, both intentionally and unintentionally.
And the guide does a great job of outlining the challenges and opportunities in AI safety, giving us a roadmap for navigating this complex landscape.
It also stresses the importance of transparency.
We need to be able to understand how AI systems work and why they make the decisions they do.
And we need to be able to hold AI systems accountable for their actions.
Transparency is crucial for building trust in AI.
Couldn't agree more.
This deep dive has given us a lot to think about. It's clear that building ethical and safe AI is a complex challenge, but it's also one that we can and must meet.
The future of AI depends on it.
It does. Now, before we conclude this episode, I want to leave you with a provocative thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
The guide mentions that AI is a human activity, shaped by our values and choices.
That's a profound statement.
It means that the future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us to decide what kind of future we want to create with AI.
That's a powerful message. We have the power to shape the future of AI.
We do, and that power comes with a responsibility to use AI ethically and responsibly.
I couldn't agree more.
This deep dive has given us the tools and knowledge to start that journey. Now it's up to us to put those tools and knowledge into practice.
Let's go build a better future with AI.
That's a great sentiment to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into AI ethics and safety. We hope you found it informative and inspiring.
And we hope it sparked your curiosity and motivated you to learn more about this important topic.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep building a better future with AI.
Thank you.